Chapter 14, Farewell to Fisuk. Another year of autumn had come, and chrysanthemums were floating all over the mountains. Originally, Fei Jie's teaching career in Tanyu should have ended in the summer, but Mr. Fei liked Tanyu's air, the sea breeze, the food in Earl Sinan's mansion, and the child he was teaching so much that he dragged it on for a few more months. A few months later, Mr. Fei, who was good at poisoning living people to death, and naturally also very good at how to make old people live longer, touched his increasingly rounded belly, and very regretfully received a letter from Kyoto, and reluctantly asked Earl Sinan's old mother to resign. The old lady naturally knew that the teacher in front of her was sent by someone from Kyoto, so she comforted him a few times and would not stay any longer, then prepared a thick red envelope and thanked him. Next to the official road going west from Tanyu Harbor, the teacher and the student were having a pre-separation conversation. "Why is it that when I told you not to practice that true chi that could explode at any time, you just didn't listen?" "Teacher, at least for now, I don't see anything too wrong with it. If there's no problem, last night when you went to the kitchen to steal some wine to drink, why did you lose control and hug the entire wine urn and break it?" "It was an accident, yeah." Fan Xian replied bitterly. In the last few months, the true qi in his body had become more and more violent and wild, and it would often happen, causing little Fan Xian to not tell ghost stories in bed with his maiden sisters for many days already, because he was afraid that when everyone cuddled up in a ball, he would destroy the flowers with the wrong hand and make an unforgivable mistake. Learn to use poison, and you'll have learned the most powerful method of killing in this world, so why bother learning all that? Because it's easy to accidentally injure good people with poison. Fei Jie suddenly stared into the young boy's eyes and said, "Are you sure you're under 6 this year?" Fan Xian looked at his teacher innocently. "It's not my fault for being precocious." Fei Jie exhaled and poo-pooed twice, thinking that it was indeed hard for him to stay with this little monster for so long without having a delirium tremens. It was time to part ways. Fei Jie stroked the little guy's head and looked back towards Tanyu City behind him. The harbor was displaying its beauty against the blue sea and sky. "In the future, if you really want to come to the capital to become a doctor, remember to look for me." "Yes." Fan Xian bowed down respectfully. He was indeed grateful to this strange old man in front of him. Blind Wuzhu was always so cold. During these years, the adult soul inside the small child was able to find a person to talk to. Even if the other party was his teacher and had a very uncomplicated background, he was still grateful, and after more than a year of being together, he could indeed feel the other party becoming more and more affectionate towards himself. "Don't learn that true chi." "Teacher, you're really long-winded." "Maybe it's because of being too old?" Fei Jie rubbed the silky black hand on Fan Xian's small head with one hand and stroked the florid gray hair scribbled on his own head with the other. "But that true chi really isn't much use. It's too powerful to control." Fei Jie still didn't die. "That sword-using monster in Dongyi City owes me a favor, so if you're willing, I can introduce you as his student." Fan Xian sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "You're talking about that sword saint from Dongyi City?" "Yes." Fei Jie seduced, "One of the 4 great masters, how could he be a bit stronger than what you're practicing?" Fan Xian was interested in something else. "Teacher, how do you know him?" "Oh, when he was 8 years old, his father asked me to see him." TSK, that monster is obviously an idiot. Every day he would only hug a branch and stare. I casually cured him. As a result, after a few more years, I heard that he actually learned the 4-goose sword technique and became a generation of masters." Fan Xian looked at him with contempt. "Cured him casually? Let's not talk about the fact that you cheated on your medical bills, teacher, but just the fact that you nearly cured a future supreme powerhouse is worthy of contempt." Fei Jie pretended to be angry as he stepped towards the distant carriage, speaking as he walked, a shallow lecture on biological poisons as well as an introduction to related knowledge. "I'll teach you all of these things. But there's still one most crucial thing that I haven't told you yet." Fan Xian scuffled and ran, his little legs like wind turbines, following behind his teacher. "What is it?" "It is not difficult to detoxify the poison, and it is not difficult to dispense the poison. The most difficult thing is to put the poison." Fei Jie walked forward without looking back. Fan Xian, however, stopped his steps behind him, carefully experiencing the words he just said. Following Fei Jie to learn this area of knowledge for a year, he naturally knew that in this world, it was really difficult to find a colorless, tasteless, and senseless poison. So the key also lies in the word down among the poison. He suddenly smiled shyly, thinking that he is not ready to do assassins, not ready to go to the palace to poison the emperor. Worry about these things to do what? As long as to ensure that the aunt of the Count Sinan's residence in Kyoto has no way to find someone to poison herself. Following Fei Jie's teacher for a year, this point of confidence is still there. Watching the carriage gradually move away, the dust rising and slowly falling to the roadside again, Fan Xian bowed to the carriage on the road. He knew that the perverted old man on the carriage must have been very reluctant to come to Danzhou in the first place. However, in the past year, he had followed him around to dig up corpses and cut up frogs' legs, and could not help but be tainted with a few hints of the other party's darkness, so he felt that he and the other party could be considered to be friends for the past few years. Such a person left, Fan Xian's heart cannot help but be a little gloomy. Mr. Fei Jie is really a good person, just miserable a little. There was a long period of time afterward that Fan Xian did not adapt. Generally speaking, when a young nobleman was his age, he would probably have a lot of friends to learn and play with, and even though he was the only young nobleman in Danzhou Harbor, he could still find a lot of playmates of a similar age. But Fan Xian knew clearly that after he had finished the storytelling session, it would be impossible for him to keep company with those people of the same age again. Because his mental age was too much older than theirs, he felt like he was bringing up a child when he was with them. Not all of us would like to be the king of the children to fulfill our humble desire for power. Even in the original world, not many big men would like to be a kindergarten teacher, and this is the same reason. After Sensei Fisuk left Tanyu Harbor and lost the only person he could communicate with, he felt that his life was starting to get boring. He stood at the entrance of the Earl's farewell mansion, looking at the crowds of people coming and going on the road, feeling a little lonely, wondering what he should do in the future as he nestled in this tiny child's body. He thought of the wonderful things he used to fantasize about when he had just woken up, and couldn't help but smile to himself, having spent most of his previous life lingering in a sick bed. His level of competence made his crossing over seem particularly pitiful, but had thought that he was always a bit more competent than the people of this world, such as being able to make a couple of bars of soap, burn a couple of ugly-shaped glass cups, and come up with a few ideas that were simple but could bring a lot of benefits to himself. But when Fan Xian found out that the world has long had soap, and glass is not very rare, Fei Jie left Tanyu Port in a four-wheeled carriage, and found that the guards next to the carriage rode a horse that was even more saddled on the horse, and stirrups under the horse. A wave of defeat made him start to sigh.